Do you work for the state of Florida? Whether that's as a teacher, a deputy, corrections officer, whatever the case may be. And are you kind of hearing these headlines about the pension plan that the Florida retirement system runs? It certainly should be getting your attention these days. There was actually an article on WESH, which is the local affiliate here in Orlando, that talks about what experts are saying about Florida's massive pension plan running dry. That's a pretty dramatic turn of events for a pension plan that not more than 15 years ago was in pretty good shape. So what's going on there, and what are the implications for folks who are in the Florida retirement system, or maybe thinking about getting a job for the state? What's going to happen to all of that? Well, we'll share with you that information here in this segment of the program. Welcome, of course, to Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. We're Central Florida's longest running radio program. Now, our reach across Central Florida has expanded. We welcome in folks over on the Space Coast with the addition of 92.7 WMMB to our lineup. We're still on, of course, on our old station that we've been on for 30 plus years over at News Radio WFLA Orlando. And then, of course, for our sports fans, we're also on 96.9 The Game. For those of you who like to catch us on the internet through our podcast, we're one of the top 25 financial planning podcasts on the World Wide Web as well, with over 16,000 downloads of our podcast episodes at last count. My name is Joel Garris. I'm a certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary with Nelson Financial Planning, where our team of certified financial fiduciaries stands ready this week to help you change your life with a successful and cost-effective financial plan that produces superior investment results and provides you with peace of mind for the future. So some background on this Florida retirement system, right? So if you work for the state, you've got two options, and I would say maybe like 2.5 options. So your two primary options are either the pension plan or the investment plan. So the pension plan is your traditional check a month kind of plan, right? Your grandfather's pension, right? It takes the years that you've worked, the service credit percentage, and then your average final compensation, and ultimately creates a number that you're going to get on a monthly basis, depending upon whether you want it joint survivor with your spouse or some other options. Then there's a recalculation of that amount. So that's the pension plan, very traditional sort of approach in terms of how retirement used to work for many Americans 20, 30 years ago. The other side of that, in terms of the two main options, is the investment plan. So what the investment plan is it basically looks like sort of the present day 401k, right? There's a lump sum of money in there that is yours. You control it. You get to take it with you once you leave. And if you retire, then it becomes something that is has the ability to be rolled over and then generate out income to you in retirement, right? I mean, the pros and cons of the pension versus the investment. Pension plan is, in fact, a guarantee by the state. We'll talk about how good that guarantee is, and this article sort of draws that into question. Versus the investment plan, where you control the money. The good news is if you pass, then ultimately that money is able to shift to other beneficiaries that you've named. The reality is, of course, that means you have the investment risk squarely in your hands. The other sort of half option, if you will, is DROP, which is the deferred retirement option, whereby you basically, it's really, the DROP is really more of an offshoot of the pension plan, because when you go into DROP, basically what you're doing there is you're saying, okay, I'm going to retire, but I'm not really going to leave. And then for the next up to 60 months, basically my pension check is going to go into a holding bin. And then at the end of that period of time, I get to take that chunk of money and take that with me. But I committed to the pension plan, so I'm going to get the pension plan, and then I'm also going to get this DROP amount as well. So the drop really is an offshoot of the pension plan, because all the money that you're getting when you do drop is just simply a reflection of the amount of your pension benefit that you should have been getting, because effectively you retire when you go into drop, but you're not able to collect your pension because you are still working for the state. So those are sort of the two main options. Well, along comes the article, and this has sort of been a conversation that's been percolating in the background for many years, particularly after 2008, 2009, because I think what people sort of forget is that, when they talk about the investment plan, and the biggest negative to the investment plan is, again, you as the individual assume all of the investment risk, versus the pension plan where it's guaranteed, quote unquote, by the state of Florida. Well, the reality is that both the success of both of those is highly dependent upon the stock market, because the reality is that when the stock market goes down, that's when the finances of the pension in fact get disturbed as well, because the pension is not a bunch of cash just sitting in a vault somewhere in Tallahassee. It is money that is invested, and if you look at the underlying investment allocation of the Florida pension plan, you'll find that it's about 70% in the stock market and 30% in cash and bonds. A typical classic growth and income balance type of portfolio. Well, experts these days are saying that the pension plan in Florida is in trouble. This is an article courtesy of WESH TV, and it quotes a Dr. Adrian Moore, who is an economic expert with the nonprofit Reason Foundation. And here's the story. 20 years ago, the Florida retirement system's liabilities versus assets had a $14.5 billion surplus. So, hey, well in great shape with a pretty good size surplus. After the recession in 2009, it became a $15 billion deficit. So a pretty dramatic swing, obviously a dramatic period of time, but that underscores the impact that the market can have on the pension plan as well. It asks anybody who works for the state of Florida these days, and they will tell you, well, I lost my COLA, and I now have to contribute 3% of my income to my retirement. I didn't have to do those things before 2009. But here's the bad part. So since 2009, the market's kind of been trending upward very strongly. The reality is, unfortunately, that it hasn't bridged the gap. The deficit in the pension plan now stands at $36 billion. So we went from a $14.5 billion surplus 20 years ago. After 2009, as you might well imagine, that swung dramatically to a $15 billion deficit. You would think, oh, market's doing well, things are going well, they must have fixed that. No, in fact, they've only expanded that to now be a $36 billion deficit. And for the 465,000 retirees of the state of Florida system and the nearly 645,000 active workers, that should be catching your attention. And the reality is that you may have to really think through these choices a little bit more. There's a law that is being proposed in Tallahassee these days that would close the pension plan to new enrollees after July 1 of 2022. So you may not have a choice. You may be forced into using the investment plan. Some exceptions on how that would play out, particularly for firefighters, EMTs, police, correctional officers, so those high-risk people would not be forced, as the only option when you come to work for the state as the investment plan would be the pension. But you still have a choice. And so the point of this is to really be thinking through what's the difference between the pension, what's the difference between the investment, and understand that there are risks on both, and which side of the equation do you want to be on. We wrote a booklet about a year ago, and actually longer ago than that, but we updated it about a year ago. It's called The State of Your Retirement, The Essential Guide for All State of Employees. For the YouTube audience, I'm holding it up for the screen. If you'd like a copy of it to learn a little bit more about these issues, go to our website, Nelson Financial Planning, and download the booklet. It's a free booklet. It's about 50-odd pages, so it won't take you too long to read it. But the reality is it's got a lot of good information in there about the differences between the pension versus the investment plan, particularly within the state system. We're going to take a break and continue on with the program after these messages here on Dollars and Cents.